Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I think I've heard the chimes go, Vicky. So welcome, colleagues. In terms of housekeeping, I'm Gerald Vernon-Jackson. I'm the leader of the Council and chair of the Employment Committee. And we'll just go around in a second to introduce everybody. If there's no fire alarm planned, so if there is one, we need to exit the building and go and meet by Queen Victoria, is it? Or is it Queen Victoria? And for her to give us directions of what then to do. This meeting is being web streamed, so if people who are members of the public don't want to be broadcast, please do say now or forever hold thy peace. The camera is over in the corner over there. But if we quickly start by going around and saying who we are, so that people who may be watching have an idea who we are, that would be helpful. So I've said I'm Gerald Vernon-Jackson, I'm leader of the Council and chair of this committee.
I'm Robert New, and like Arya Stark, I am no one, but I am deputising for Councillor Luke Stubbs.
Councillor Donna Jones, Hillsey Ward Councillor.
Councillor Darren Sanders, Baffin's Ward Councillor.
Sue Page, Finance Manager.
John Bell, I'm the Director of HR Legal and Performance.
Michael Lauder, Deputy Chief Executive.
David Williams, Chief Executive.
Vicky Pleatas, Democratic Services.
And we have three people sat at the back. Do come and join us at the table, and it'd be useful to know who you are, why you're here, and because we'd be interested to know. So, Caroline, I know who you are, but do you want to sit down and introduce yourself? Yeah. There we are. You're lit up. You're alive.
Hello, I'm Sandra Wilkie. I'm the Apprentice and Training Manager, and I'm here for the apprenticeship paper.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm rubbish. I didn't catch your names. Adrian. Adrian, what item are you interested in, Adrian? Oh, when it gets to their yell. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, folks, so welcome to the meeting. So we've got apologies from Luke Stubbs. Haven't had any more apologies from anybody. And Rob, thank you very much indeed for subbing. So Chad Chowdhury has given his apologies, probably at the Labour Party conference. Colleagues, any declarations of interest anybody would like to make? Nope. Okay. Item 3, minutes. Colleagues, are you happy with the minutes of the previous meeting? Yeah. I'm happy to propose them. Donna, are you happy to say? Lovely. Everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 4, senior management structure. David, just for the record, I think you wanted to make a comment connected with this to begin with before we start looking at the report.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Yes, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have seen an article on page 9 of the news today, which alludes to my interest in a post at the Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council. And unfortunately, there was a leak at the Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole end of this in terms of their recruitment process. I'm very happy to clarify that, yes, I did show an interest in that post. I no longer have an interest in that post, but I'm sure, given that you know that I have lived in that area for 34 years, it's the opportunity to create a new unitary authority for an area that I know very well, and a very large unitary authority, actually, 400,000, that I did express an interest in it. But I can absolutely confirm for you that that is no longer the case, and I wish them all the very best with their recruitment.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. David, do you want to then introduce the report about change the management structure?
Yeah, thank you very much. We've had a number of different management structures in the time that I have been here, and when we last looked at that, we set up a structure whereby Those directors related to the place and the support services side of things reported in the first instance to Michael Lawther as the Deputy Chief Executive, and those related to the people side, education, social care, public health, and so forth, reported to myself. That was a consequence of a previous reorganisation. We had at that time significantly more directors than we do now. It has been suggested that we change that arrangement so that all the directors report directly to myself. Both myself and Michael Lawther are very happy with that arrangement. It's not a problem to us, but I think that if the members of this committee would like to make that change, then we should put in place a consultation, as some of the directors might object violently to reporting directly to me. But I think that we should do some consultation on that. The only other point I would make is that at the last major reorganisation that we had, we amalgamated effectively the roles of service unit head and director, and there was a net reduction in posts at that point as well. So I just wanted to clarify that for the purposes of the report and the discussion. But the proposal is that all of the directors would have their line management direct to myself. Thank you.
Okay, and Donald wants to do a suggestion in terms of rewording paragraph 3, which I think is entirely sensible. But I think our view is if we can find ways of getting the council to work cross-department in a better way, that there are potential benefits for the whole of the council, and therefore having a single unified management structure, so everybody there's a clear thing from the chief executive down to directors down through there is a logical way to work. So that's why we would like to do that. But Donna, your suggestion in terms of have you got a particular rewording you'd like on paragraph 3? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Before I move on to the proposed wording, I'd just like to say that I fully support this. I think, however the administration wish to work with their senior management team is on something like this, rearranging the deck chairs, entirely down to you. It makes sense to me, and as long as the chief exec and deputy chief exec are happy with it, then I have no specific observation. The only thing, having just spoken to David, and I think his explanation ties in with what I'm going to recommend now, is that previously we had that head of service role that David's talked about, and in the report under 3, item 3 of the report and background, in line 1, 2, 3, 4, it talks about in part as a consequence of the significant increase in director posts. Technically there was, that's absolutely right, but it's because we renamed for recruitment and retention purposes the heads of service. So some strategic directors left the organisation, Michael became deputy chief exec, and some of the existing adult social care and children's social care, for example, directors were then on the same line, albeit paid more because of their statutory responsibility, as the other heads of service who became directors. So we just made it slightly flatter. So my proposal is that we remove the words the significant increase, and just change it so it would read, as a consequence of the renaming of heads of service to directors for the purposes of recruitment and retention, and that's it. And then leave everything else as is. And I've got that written down, Vicky, if you need me to go through that again.
That seems to be purely a statement of fact, so that seems entirely sensible. Okay. Anything else on the report in terms of the principles? Are we happy with this, colleagues? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. In which case, we move on to item 5. Caroline, welcome and thanks to you and congratulations on the Gold Award. Very good. Walk us through the report.
Okay, so it's congratulations to the city on a very well-earned Gold Award. Just to put it into context, on the 10th of August 2018, Portsmouth City Council was one of only 130 organisations nationwide that held a Gold Award within the Defence Employees Recognition Scheme. Portsmouth City Council was one of only 4 councils within the south east of England to hold this award. It was the only unitary. Portsmouth City Council is one of only 2 authorities in the whole of the south of England to hold this award, unitary authorities. So it is a well-earned, prestigious award. And it has taken effort at every level of the organisation. And I just wanted to cap for you a couple of bits that aren't in the report that demonstrate the depth and breadth of the work that took place. Supportive employment policies, which include additional paid leave to enable reservists to undertake their annual training. Asking employees if they have served and the development of an armed forces staff network. Including a covenant clause within our commissioning of new contracts. Joint activity with the Royal Navy for National Apprenticeship Week. Development of a special work experience pathway for those in resettlement, veterans and spouses, enabling them to discover firsthand how their military skills translate into civilian employment. Participation in special awareness-raising events, including the Sandhurst Leadership Day Challenge. Celebration of Armed Forces Day, special events and awareness-raising by our elected Armed Forces champions, leaders and senior staff. Social media campaigns to raise awareness of the Covenant, encourage others to sign up across the city. And business events in partnership with Shaping Portsmouth to enable personnel in resettlement to connect with other organisations and consider future employment options. These are just a few of the activities that took place in order to enable Portsmouth City Council to gain gold. Which is an important thing for us to think about when we move on to a sustainability plan. The gold is not a one-stop award. It is renewed every 5 years, and when we get to that point in 2023, Portsmouth City Council will need to demonstrate that it has maintained its activity consistently and continued to develop. And that's why we set forward a headline sustainability plan that encompasses the 3 key areas of the award, which I'm hoping that you will endorse today. So the first area is being a proactive employer. We have developed some fantastic relationships within the last 2 years, and we will continue to work with other organisations to think how we can ensure that there is parity of employment opportunity for members of the armed forces community. We have to remember this is about ensuring parity, but in some instances that does mean creating specific and special opportunities to support those who are struggling to find employment within the civilian workplace. One key way that we're going to do that is by considering the opportunities that we have around work experience and how we can link them into the people who need them most, continuing to work with the Careers Transition Partnership, but also with other organisations such as the Royal British Legion. We will be looking at how we become a better employer of reservists. We already have 3 reservists within this organisation. However, given the number of employees that we have, I think it's absolutely reasonable that we can expect to have some more. Perhaps maybe 1 per directorate would be a good start. And in order to do that, we're going to work with managers across the organisation to see the benefits of having reservists within our employment, and also to think about how we're encouraging reserving through our continual professional development pathways. So asking people, is it something they've considered, and then supporting them to go through that process. And then in terms of our supply chain, we have made a phenomenal start in showing advocacy and commitment by the covenant clause within our contracting. However, a clause in itself is not enough. We need proactive work with commissioning managers to ensure they understand the covenant and they understand how to bespoke that clause to make it meaningful within that specific contract. Otherwise, what we have is some words with not much sitting underneath them. So there's going to be some work around that. And that together should create a package of activity throughout the next 5 years that I would hope when 2023 comes, you'll be fully confident in reapplying for your Gold Award. In terms of the resources to do that, my post is currently funded through the Armed Forces Covenant Trust Fund. That has a length to it which is roughly around March 2020. It is anticipated that the majority of the work needed to ensure your gold in 2023 will be complete by that time, and that maintenance will be looked through mainstreaming. So it should not have any impact in terms of additional resources.
Great. Well, again, congratulations. I think it's been a great deal of hard work by many people, and I think we're all incredibly grateful for that. I do take your point that out of an organisation as large as this, where only 3 active reservists, it is quite low. And if we can let people know that either if they're reservists and they're interested in applying for a job, that they can continue to do that, or people who are currently in employment, that if they wanted to take that route, that would be fine. Okay, colleagues, and Donna.
Thank you very much. This is such a magnificent piece of work, and I think Caroline's being very bashful when she says that it's really our congratulations, because I think a lot of this momentum, focus, and speed actually at which you've come into the organisation got us our bronze was awarded, got the silver submitted, signed off and awarded, gold prepared, signed off, and actually I thought it was going to take longer to get the gold confirmed. So I actually think that, credit where credit's due. I think you've done a really good job there. And actually I think it is really important that you have someone, such as Caroline in the organisation who keeps the focus and momentum. I think the idea of having an armed forces rep in each directorate is amazing, because I actually think we have got more reservists working for this organisation. They just could, a lot of them may not be civic officers based, they may not be computer based people, and therefore having a champion in each directorate means that you'll be able to pick them up easier and get them registered and everything. So from my perspective, I also want to place on record congratulations to the administration, because I think that, you taking on that role, Gerald, as leader, of being an armed forces champion, just again helps Caroline to make a point of how serious this organisation is. So I think it's great news, and well done to everyone.
Thank you. Rob.
Yeah, really, just to echo those sentiments as well, and just to say thank you, but also as well, I was very glad to hear about the work in terms of the proactive approach with the champions, for example, in each directorate, because I think some of the problem that people face is you might have people that aren't necessarily massively confident, but they've always thought about perhaps being a reservist is some sort of payback that they'd like to be involved with, but often they're kind of torn between, is my employer going to give me grief for taking off the amount of time, because quite often it's a very short notice when they're told, in 2 weeks' time, yes, you're going off for 8 weeks, wherever, etc. And I think reservists are doing fantastic work, etc. And I think they're extremely commendable people to have in our organisation. So it's very good to see.
Yeah, great. Okay, colleagues, are you happy with the recommendations here? Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. That's great. If we can move on to apprenticeships. John.
Okay, well, I'll start by talking through it. Sandy's here as my phone a friend, as it were, in the event of anything highly technical coming up on it. But essentially, this report's doing 3 things. It's providing.
Caroline, if you want to run away and you're bored, you are. There is no compulsion to stay.
Thank you. I was wondering whether to go with Sandy if it's going to be less destructive.
No. Whenever you feel it. John, back to you.
Okay, so it's essentially doing 3 things. One of those is to continue to provide members with information about how our apprenticeship programme is developing in terms of numbers and progress. Also, in response to the members' request at the last meeting, we've done some work around sort of finding out what some other organisations are doing and reported a bit of a flavour of that back to members. And we're also providing some more information with regards to this issue about being able to transfer up to 10% of our unspent levy money to other employers. And I've proposed a process by which we can do that, which I'll come on to in just a second. So in terms of the overall progress, I mean, yes, we continue to be absolutely on the right path. As I won't go through the information slavishly, but as you'll see from Appendix 1 particularly, we've got ever-increasing numbers of apprenticeships. And I think what's most telling is that we're moving a lot of people into, I suppose, sort of higher-level apprenticeships. I mean, we've got a cohort recently started MBAs through the apprenticeship levy, some professional training, as it lists there, around things like chartered surveying. And that's fabulous, because it's enabling us to make an investment in our staff that we probably wouldn't have been able to contemplate doing for financial reasons, and it will also burn through the apprenticeship levy pot fairly quickly, obviously, given the cost of some of those cost of some of those qualifications. But that's a good thing, because it's much better that we're using that money to invest in our staff rather than effectively handing it back to the Treasury, or at least handing it over to the Treasury. It's our money to start with, of course. In terms of the information we've got from other employers that we've contacted, there's a summary of that in section 8 of the report. And I think, I won't go through the detail of that, but I think just to summarise a flavour of it, I think it does sort of reinforce the view that we've always had, that actually we're quite ahead of the pack on this. We started our preparations early. We've put a lot of work into it, and we're well ahead of the game, I think, particularly in relation to other councils, but also some other larger providers in the area and indeed nationally. And only last week, some of my team were up at the LGA giving talks at an event around apprenticeships, which I gather was very well received. In terms of the process for distributing the 10%, as I think I warned you previously, this is an ever moving set of goalposts as the rules change and the guidance changes. I think the position we're at now is that yes, we can be distributing that money to a variety of different other companies. There was talk at the time about having to go through one. I said last time that it might be an option for us to set up our own apprenticeship training agency, or ATA, which was essentially because at the time the guidance actually said that was the only way that you could distribute it to more than one company. But the rules have actually changed on that now, and we can give it to more than one. And actually, from doing some further digging and research into the implications of setting up an ATA, our recommendation to you now is that that's probably not a road we want to go down. What we have done, though, is spelt out or drafted out a sort of a fairly simple process for getting sort of bids or applications for a proportion of that funding. Once again, I won't bore you with the minutiae of that, but that would essentially require people to come to us with their application, and we would score that using a sort of scoring matrix, which I've included. I'm conscious, actually, one thing I didn't say in the report was who would actually make the ultimate decision about sort of how that was allocated in the event that the scoring didn't sort of give us that answer. I think my suggestion would be that would be done by perhaps the portfolio holder for resources or portfolio holder for PRED, but I can formalise that within the process if members be minded that I do that, or alternatively it's something that we could do at officer level if that was members' preference. So I think that's probably all I wanted to say on the report. Happy to take any questions, or which I hope myself and Sandy will be able to field between us.
It all seems remarkably sensible to go down this route. But my question is in terms of giving the money back to government. On after the table on paragraph 7.2, which is over the page on page 28, it says at present it's projected the council will not be required to return any of its levy to the government until December 2019. Is this a timing factor, or we just won't have been able to use the money? And therefore, can we? It causes me great personal pain to return any money to the Treasury for them to waste elsewhere. So, what can we do to make sure that we don't have to return any money?
Okay, I think I agree with you. It's certainly very galling, and I think it's not a case of returning the money. It's our money to start with, obviously. So
should we? It's not. In which case, should we not say returning any money, but stop them looting it?
But that might be a choice of words that would be appropriate. Yeah, it's I mean that's based on the current projections, but obviously what we have to bear in mind is that sort of it's ramping up all the time, and we essentially have 2 years, I think, isn't it, to spend the levy money before we are in that position. And what you're seeing from the list of apprenticeships we've got is that our expenditure is going up all the time. So obviously, as long as we continue that path, we are expecting to be in a position where we won't be handing money back, but obviously, or back over, whatever you want to call it, but obviously we can't guarantee that because it is dependent on take-up, it's dependent on the cost of the courses, etc. I mean, obviously, at the very least, we want to get to the position where we've only got 10% left, and we can be using that for wider economic and social gains across the city. Yeah, I mean, we will do all we can to avoid a position where we're actually losing any money.
Okay, Darren and Donna.
I just wanted to try and find a way of including John's point about getting some sort of democratic sign-off in the option 2. I mean, option 1 just seems too much hassle, to be honest. Option 2 sounds sensible. So what I was proposing to suggest, Gerald, is that where it says members are recommended to endorse option 2 as the preferred option in relation to the transfer of levy funds to external employers, adding a clause saying, and I'll be guided partly by John on this, with the Cabinet Member for Resources in consultation with the Employment Committee Chair, allocating, deciding, which is the relevant verb to use, John?
I think allocating would be an appropriate one.
And it's allocating essentially where the money goes. Okay. Chair, if I beg your indulgence, I'm more than happy to sort of get a written version of that sent over to Vicky at some stage this afternoon. If colleagues, of course, are happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Donna?
I'd quite like John's advice as well, if that's okay, on that point. And that is that the HR function of the council sits within the resources portfolio, and therefore, because HR are sort of managing the process, I get that, but actually the upskilling of the local workforce, as John said earlier, does actually come through PRED and working with different employers. And the best cabinet member to go out and be engaging with Airbus or IT companies in the city or Babcock or BAE, actually they'll do their own one anyway, but you know, maybe the medium-sized employers that would maybe be able to take advantage of this would actually be the staff and the cabinet member for PRED. So I like what Darren's suggesting to add it in. It's just how we might tweak it, and maybe John's professional opinion. I think probably PRED with skills in there is also, if not the best option, but could be alongside what Darren's proposed as well.
Yes, I don't disagree with that at all, and I think, I suppose the reason I mentioned initially the portfolio holder for resources, portfolio holder for PRED, was not so much a connection with HR actually, it was that I would see it as a potential option that some of the levy money could be supporting the voluntary sector, for example, which is obviously something which comes more under the, or is more closely aligned with the resources portfolio. But, I mean, if perhaps a construct, a word that allows the resources portfolio and PRED portfolio to make that allocation in consultation with each other, and whether that would be the best approach. I don't think we're sort of constitutionally constrained by it. I think it's more about members' view as to where those decisions best fall.
Well, I think it's an officer decision about where it's allocated, but in consultation with those portfolio holders would be a good thing. I think it potentially sensible to have the chair of this committee as well, but in terms of being inclusive, it might be sensible to be chair and vice chair of this committee, so we do this on a cross-party basis.
I mean, I know that when Lee Mason and I were doing the two respective roles, I would have been reaching out to businesses far more than he would have done the third sector. But actually, a lot of the opportunity for this city to grow in terms of retention of graduates, more graduate level jobs, higher earnings, helping the demographic, would be through PRED and the connection that I would have had it through that. So I would say now Ben, but look, I'm happy for you guys to work it out. It's just my observation.
Yeah, okay. All right, with that, colleagues, are you happy with this?
I'm supremely relaxed as to
Excellent.
where the democratic oversight goes.
Sorry, did you reach a decision? Who
Well,
was
I think
actually
it's going to be in
decide?
consultation with both the cabinet members, and actually, should we just leave it with them? Yeah, fine. So we'll butt out. Okay, colleagues, you happy with that? Lovely. Okay. Item 7, dying to work. John.
I'm just wondering perhaps whether this was the item Adrian was interested in.
I got my words confused. I think it is not the correct place to give such a subject the wrong time.
Oh. Okay. John.
Okay.
John, do you want to walk us through this again?
Yeah, by all means. I mean, essentially, the Dying to Work Charter is something that's been proposed to employers initially through the Trade Union Congress, actually. And essentially what it's about is ensuring that employers give a commitment to treat employees suffering from a terminal illness with all due sort of respect and consideration, which is sort of a bit of a no-brainer in terms of whether it's something you'd want to do. I think from our perspective, I mean, the majority, in fact, all of the things contained within the Charter are things sort of which we've already got reasonably well covered. I think, as you'd expect, and as often with these charters, they're very much aimed at sort of employers who perhaps sort of are a bit further down the scale in terms of their sort of level of social responsibility to their workforce. I think there are a couple of things I would point out, though. Firstly, there is a sort of an implication in the Charter that you would never dismiss someone who had a terminal illness. Well, actually, there are some circumstances where it's in the employee's interest to be dismissed, for example, on the grounds of ill health, and we wouldn't want to be in a position where we're actually disadvantaging the employee. And we have to bear in mind, in employment terms, the term dismissal does include redundancy. So it's a fairly wide term. So as I've spelt out in the report, yes, there would be occasions where actually dismissal would be the thing to do in the employee's interest. And the other thing to point out is that I don't think we would ever want to be in a position of saying we would never make someone redundant who had a terminal illness, because actually, if you imagine someone who's maybe working in a particular facility that is closing down, everyone in that facility might be in a position where they're redundant, and we can't be in a position where we're sort of saying, like, this person isn't, but everyone else is. But I think they're fairly sort of technical points, and I think the important thing is the essence of the Charter, which is about actually making sure that we are treating people who are obviously in that very sort of unfortunate position in such a way that we're not making anything worse for them. And I think on that basis, I would recommend to you that we do sign up to it.
Okay. Adrian, was there anything you'd like to add?
No, I was just interested in the presentation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Colleagues, your thoughts? Donna?
Completely sensible. I take on board the point that John's made, the technicality around dismissal, but I'm sure what the TUC were getting at was, sacking someone through performance when they were sick, which you can understand would probably make them even more unwell. So, yeah, I mean, as long as we've got that legally covered out, then I think it seems a sensible proposal.
Darren?
I'm happy formally to propose recommendations 2.1, but I would quite like Gerald to add another one, which is to encourage schools to sign up to the Charter as well. I realise we can't force schools to do it, but we certainly have an encouragement and general cajoling role, and particularly through the Portsmouth Schools Partnership, and it seems a bit mad for us to do it with our financial responsibilities towards schools, and then suddenly not turn around and go, oops, terribly sorry, this doesn't apply. When actually it seems like an excellent charter from the TUC. I do agree, Adrian, with John's minor tweak about redundancy, which I think actually is quite reasonable. But I think we should encourage schools to sign up to it as well. How that's done, I think maybe something for the Portsmouth Schools Partnership to work out. But with that additional recommendation, Gerald, I'm happy formally to move the recommendations.
Rob?
With that, I think it's sensible, but will you also need to make an amendment for 1.1 where it says excluding schools after Portsmouth City Council on line 2?
Yeah. Okay. No, I think very sensible. John, sorry, can I ask a question? I think this is entirely sensible and the right thing to do. But my question goes to, how do you define terminal illness? Because for some people, and it's just that judgment bit, if somebody's diagnosed with something, there may be many years of healthy life that they have, but they are diagnosed with that they will die at some point, as most of us will. So it's just, I think if other people have done this, I'm sure there's a way around it, a sensible sort of view, but because there are some people who would take the view that there are illnesses that will lead to death at some point, and therefore might define themselves. And I just want to. I might be there might be a description that's right, but I've just wondered about this slightly. John, you first, and then Donna and Darren.
I think the point is that I don't think this charter would require us to sort of formally designate people and sort of put them in a sort of a terminal illness sort of category, if you like. It's about making sure that we treat employees fairly. Now, obviously, there are definitions within, for example, the rules around ill health retirement that would be used in particular cases. But obviously, what we're really saying is that actually our existing policies and procedures, etc., do ensure that people who are suffering from whatever condition actually are adequately protected through what we do. So they have the ability to use our employee assistance programme. So we would take the right decisions in terms of whether they can access their sort of pensions early through ill health retirement, etc. But there's nothing in here that would require us to sort of go to our workforce and sort of hive off those who we're defining as being terminally ill, if you like, and treat them differently.
Thank you. I think it's about the individual's choices, isn't it, and making sure that they're not discriminated against,
Yes.
but also positively or negatively that they can come back if they want to. And I think it is a good point, because last year, as you all know anyway, but my mum was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I thought this time last year she wouldn't be here now, and she is, because before she started chemotherapy they realised that she had the right sort of cancer for immunotherapy, and actually she feels very well. I mean, she saw her consultant last week, and the consultant said it's almost like having a chronic illness, as opposed, it is still terminal, she'll never be cured of it, but you know, when immunotherapy's been in clinical trials now for about 10 years in this country, and I saw someone on Saturday last year, a lady in her 70s who was one of the first people in the country to go onto the trial, who's now had cancer for 10 years and would have died years ago, and actually now, I mean, my mum personally is I think probably will leave work at some point because of her age, but actually had she been my age in her 40s, she may have chosen at the end of the 2 years when her half pay and full pay had ended to go back to work, because financially she may have needed to. So I just think as long as we're not discriminating against people that way by not making it easy, keeping the option open for them to come back to work if they want to.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think we need to change anything in the report. I just think we just need to be sensitive and working through. Darren.
I agree with you, Gerald. I don't think we need to change anything in the report. However, the issue you raise and Donna raises is fair, because we're just going to make completely sure. What I would like to suggest is just one extra piece of bureaucracy, just to make sure that happens. John, you've done a preliminary equality impact assessment, which is fine. But I think given that there is an issue about what on earth is a terminal illness, and given that we're going to have to sign up to this in public, with a representative of the campaign coming around, as an employer, we may think that we're being okay because our procedures are fine. But as soon as somebody complains, that's what people will remember. So it might be quite useful to look at perhaps a more detailed equality impact assessment, just to sort of tease out this issue, because Donna raises a fair point about people who believe they have a terminal illness and then recover. And there are also issues about what and who and why and where. And I just think instead of rewriting or making additions to the report, just one additional bit of bureaucracy around a slightly more detailed equality impact assessment will resolve a lot of the issues, so we won't have negative publicity for something that should be incredibly positive.
Adrian, yeah.
I'm furiously checking the facts before I pass it on to
Adrian, can you push a button so we can record you?
sorry, is that fine?
Yep.
Yeah, I was just checking the facts before I mentioned it earlier. Within the TUC's Dying to Work campaign, terminal illness is a disease that cannot be cured or adequately treated if there is a reasonable expectation the patient will pass within a relatively short period of time. UK social security legislation defines terminal illness as a progressive disease where death as a consequence of that disease can be expected within 6 months.
Okay.
So they do have their own
Fine. Adrian, that's hugely helpful. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely. That's really helpful. Okay, colleagues, with that in, are you happy to support this? Thank you very much indeed. That is the end of the meeting. John, no? Oh, sorry. My apologies. John, you were looking upset at me. Now, I now have to go and re-find all my papers. What have I done? Yes, yeah, no, but I got 98 other things here.
Would you like me to start?
Yes, introduce it.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I don't think it needs a huge amount of introduction, given that it's a report that members are hugely familiar with, having seen it many, many times before. The headline, I think, is just that sickness has reduced again marginally, which is good news, although it's really nothing significant, with a minor increase in long-term absence and a small decrease in short-term absence. I mean, as always, there are quite wide variations across the service areas. I think I've pointed out previously that the port in particular is a sort of rather sets the negative tone, if you like, with higher levels than anywhere else. That is being managed. Obviously, there's a relatively small cohort of staff at the port, and so you don't need many people to be off for it to be quite statistically significant. And I mean, we are dealing really with 2 or 3 significant cases which are currently being managed through. We're still doing work around sort of employee well-being in the longer term, and there's some information in the report about some of what's going on there, and members have had quite a lot of information on that previously. And also in response to, I think, members' comments at the last meeting where I'd neglected to include the list of reasons for absence, that's now back in the report as well. So happy to take any questions members may have.
Colleagues? Donna?
I'm just looking at you said in the report, it says there are 4 departments that are still above the council's target of 7 days, but actually it looks to me like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it's a tiny thing. You've got regeneration, public health, the port, adults, and community engagement. I mean, we can take out schools because that's separate, but we've got 5, not 4. It's a minor thing, but
Community. Sorry, just to correct you, Donna. Community and communication.
sorry,
As
it's
far
the
as
one
I've got
above. It's children's
5.0.
social care. Sorry, yes, that's right. Community engagement are outstanding, yeah, no, there are 5. It's a minor thing, but anyway, all looks like it's going in the right direction, which is good. But then it's been the summer, hasn't it? So we know that it will get worse over the winter, because it always does.
Colleagues, are you happy with this then? Thank you very much indeed. Now, for the second time of asking, are we happy to finish?